How did a wall with polygonal masonry, identical to those in ancient Egypt and South America, end up deep in Russia? In the 19th century, it was used as a dock and enclosure for a metallurgical plant owned by the famous Russian merchant and industrialist family, the Demidovs. The construction of the wall is attributed to them. But why did they use polygonal masonry, which had never been used before? There are many other oddities in this story. Let's figure it out. The wall stands in the Ural village of Chusovoye. It has always been in plain sight, but nobody paid much attention to it. It was simply there, as it always had been. Interest in the wall only began around 2014. If you look at it not just as a wall, but also examine how it was built, it becomes clear that it can be classified as one of Russia's most enigmatic ancient structures. This stone wall was created using polygonal masonry, a technique not found anywhere else in this region. How did the Demidovs know about this construction method? And most importantly, why would they build something so complex and durable when all the surrounding structures were significantly simpler? Stones of different shapes are tightly fitted together in a chaotic pattern, unlike the brickwork of the 19th century, but in a way that gives the wall a near-eternal durability. These blocks vary in size yet form a perfectly even surface. For the needs of that era, this method was unnecessarily complex. The wall originally extended over 100 meters and was part of the Demidov factory dock. The ravine where it's located was once an artificial bay with small shipyards at its bottom. It contains roughly 6,000 diorite blocks, all of different sizes. The largest blocks are up to 2 meters long and weigh approximately 3 tons each. This is closer to the river, where the wall ends. The wall runs approximately perpendicular to the river and terminates at the exit of the ravine with an old bridge made of large logs and planks. Take a look at the surroundings of this structure: a canal lined with wood, a wooden dam, primitive old buildings also made of wood, and a crumbling brick house. There are no other complex stone structures here or even within many kilometers. Yet here, behind these buildings in the ravine, stands the abandoned megalithic wall with polygonal masonry. Logically, if you're skilled in stonework, why wouldn't you use it more widely, for defensive structures or utility buildings? But no, even now, everything there is still made of wood. Could Demidov have physically built this wall? They had the financial means, but researchers found no quarries nearby from which such blocks could have been cut. There remains the mystery of how these multi-ton stone blocks were brought to the construction site. And the equipment for cutting and transporting such materials, according to the official account, was only available in St. Petersburg. This means that the blocks would have had to be transported from very far away, which seems highly impractical, as similar docks elsewhere held up just fine using ordinary cobblestones. So why make things so complicated? Could it be evidence of a pre-flood civilization in Russia? Or could this structure indeed have been built in the 18th to 19th centuries? Wouldn't such a project have been excessively costly for those challenging times? And if it were possible, and perhaps not so difficult, then why wasn't such a wall built around the entire perimeter of the factory? After all, everything else was built from smaller materials, so flimsy that none of it survived to this day. Only this one wall remains standing. Perhaps it was there even before the factory was built? History is silent on this, leaving us to speculate. Most likely, the Demidovs inherited this dock from the previous landowners, where they later built their metallurgical plant with wooden and brick structures. But while nearly nothing remains of the factory, the ancient wall still stands. By the way, this wall can be seen on Google Maps. For those interested, here are its coordinates. As I mentioned earlier, the wall's construction is attributed to the Demidovs because it is on the land where their plant once stood. Allegedly, they built it around the same time as the plant, or possibly later, when the plant was already operational, around the 1800s. Officially, according to documents, the construction permit was granted on February 9, 1727, and the first work began on September 1 of the same year. Some diligent researchers have reportedly uncovered interesting facts about this wall. Supposedly, they found a historical document in the archives, one we are unlikely to see in its original form. Nevertheless, maybe we're not meant to see such important documents. The content is simply reproduced in typed text claimed to be from the document. I don't see much point in discussing it in detail, as it's merely a series of words with no verified authenticity. I'll share a few excerpts related to the construction of certain structures that may pertain to this wall. After all, it supposedly answers the question of who built the wall and when, and why only this wall was constructed with such quality while everything else was not. The document begins as follows. A reconstruction was underway not only of the harbor gates, but of the entire lock at the old harbor. In May, according to a report by Overseer Timofey Polyakov, work began on constructing a new harbor. As you continue reading, the document gives direct answers to the questions that interest us, precisely identifying the date of the wall's construction, its purpose, and the builders. It states that the supply of rubble and the wall's masonry took place in May or July 1816, carried out by both factory and freelance workers. In the construction of the new harbor wall at the Chi-Town plant, the building plan was as follows. First, the dam. Second, the cherry cut. Third, the drain bridge. Fourth, the proposed second harbor's masonry, yet unfinished stone wall. The wall's position on the plan matches exactly with the existing stone masonry today, measuring no less than 85 meters in scale. The wall did not touch the dam directly, instead, it stood away from it along the entire length of the drain bridge, around 20 meters. It was supposedly intended for the second harbor and described as unfinished, or not completed, as the document states. The stone wall functioned as a retaining wall, protecting the right bank of the canal from erosion, to prevent soil washout and to give the lock structure the capacity to withstand water pressure. But is this really the case? The original document couldn't be found to verify the authenticity of this text, so we're left with questions about the construction methods. According to the official version, the construction of the second harbor was not completed, likely due to financial constraints. Based on this document, if we are to believe it, Timofey Polyakov was in charge of the work from May to September 1816, with Satov, a reputedly skilled builder, as the developer. It is said that he did not finish the wall, as cheaper alternatives had emerged by then. The entire project turned out to be quite costly, and its completion may have been postponed, only to be replaced later with a more affordable solution. This shift led to lower quality overall, which is why only one wall has survived to this day. The oddities of this version don't end there. Nowhere in the document, or in any other source for that matter, is there any mention of the preparation of blocks for the new harbor at a quarry, their processing, or their transport to Chi-Tanka. How was all this accomplished? And who could have had the necessary experience, given that the technique of polygonal masonry had not been used before? It's worth noting that creating this type of masonry requires careful planning of how each block will fit together on all four sides. Meanwhile, all other structures in the area were made of wood or ordinary brick. It seems likely that someone wanted to support the official historical narrative, and simply came up with this explanation to account for the sudden appearance of such a complex structure in the Urals. At present, this unique prehistoric structure remains unstudied and abandoned. The official history has no questions about it. We, however, will continue to explore these prehistoric megastructures, and one day we will uncover the truth. Thank you for your interest in ancient structures. Please subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Feel free to like the video or leave a comment if you wish.